Welcome back to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we recalibrate your biology and rediscover your direction. I'm your host, Brandon Soika, and today we're diving into a question I hear constantly. I think it might be my hormones. That phrase shows up everywhere. You feel off, irritable, foggy, unmotivated, low in libido, heavy in mood, and the first guess, hormones. And sometimes you're right. But far more often, what feels like a hormone problem is actually a signal problem driven by cellular exhaustion, nutrient depletion, or metabolic misalignment upstream. So in this episode, we're going to walk through how to tell if your symptoms are truly hormone related or something deeper, why fixing hormones often doesn't work if the foundation is still broken, and how to rebuild your hormonal rhythm from the bottom up instead of chasing numbers. Because it's not just about testosterone, estrogen, and cortisol levels. It's about how your cells make energy and whether they feel safe enough to use it. Hormones are powerful. They absolutely shape how you feel, how you function, how you show up in the world. But they're not the root cause of most modern metabolic symptoms. They're responders, not initiators. In other words, your hormones don't lead, they follow the state of your cells. Here's the problem with how most people think about hormones. They treat them like batteries, as if your estrogen or testosterone runs out and needs to be topped off. But hormones aren't stored energy. They are messages that tell your body what to do based on what's happening inside your cells. So if your cells are tired, your hormones respond to that with fatigue. If your cells are inflamed, your hormones shift in an attempt to adapt. So when people say, my hormones are off, they're often just describing the downstream effects of mitochondrial dysfunction, redox balance, nutrient depletion, chronic inflammation, or circadian misalignment. And if we try to fix hormones without addressing these, we're putting wallpaper over a moldy wall. So let's get even more specific. Hormones aren't produced in a vacuum. You need cholesterol to make steroid hormones, B vitamins, especially B6 and B5 for adrenal hormone production, zinc and selenium for thyroid conversion, magnesium to regulate cortisol rhythm, iron, iodine, tyrosine for proper thyroid signaling. If you're undereating, overstressed, or inflamed, guess what happens? Can't make hormones properly. And what do you feel? Mood swings, fatigue, weight gain, or resistance, sleep disruption, low libido, cycle irregularity. And these aren't just hormone problems. They're hormone output limitations caused by cellular exhaustion. So here's a classic one. Adrenal fatigue. People say, I've got adrenal fatigue, my cortisol is low, I need supplements to fix my adrenals. But your adrenals don't break. They respond to inputs from the hypothalamus and pituitary, signals that are shaped by sleep, stress, blood sugar, inflammation, redox status, and mitochondrial output. So if your cortisol is low, it's not always an adrenal issue. It's often a safety signal from your biology saying, we don't have the reserves to keep pushing, so slow down. Low cortisol doesn't mean take a stimulant. It means rebuild your base. This is why so many people don't feel better on HRT or hormone replacement therapy, thyroid meds, or even adaptogens, because the messenger isn't the issue, it's the terrain. Your cells are still inflamed, underfed, or overstimulated. Adding more hormone doesn't land. Estrogen won't regulate if detox pathways are blocked. Testosterone won't increase motivation if dopamine tone is suppressed. Progesterone won't calm you down if GABA receptors aren't firing. Thyroid won't restore energy if mitochondrial uncoupling is unresolved. You have to rebuild the foundation first. So in the next segment, we'll walk through a real case study. A woman in her late 30s who came in convinced her hormones were wrecked. But what we uncovered beneath the surface, mitochondrial collapse, micronutrient deficiency, and redox imbalance. Once we fixed those, her hormones caught up naturally. Let me walk you through a case I'll never forget. A woman, we'll call her Elena, came into the clinic convinced she was in perimenopause. She was 38, fit, clean eater, type A personality, high performer. She had 2 kids, a demanding career, and described herself as running on discipline. But something fell off. Her words, "I cry at random, I can't think straight, I've lost my drive, I just don't feel like me." She'd been to 2 different doctors, both ran hormone panels, her estrogen on the lower end but not tanked, her progesterone a little flat in the luteal phase, her cortisol within range through the morning spike, but though her morning spike was muted. Both doctors told her the same thing. It's just your hormones. One offered HRT, the other offered an antidepressant. Neither helped. That's when she came to us. So rather than retesting hormones, we zoomed out. We looked at micronutrient status, organic acids, mitochondrial function, gut microbiota diversity, oxidative stress markers, glucose and insulin dynamics, and subjective signals from her drift pattern. Here's what we found. Severe B2 and B6 deficiency, low NAD plus precursors, poor butyrate levels and low microbial diversity, elevated oxidative stress and suppressed glutathione, dysregulated blood sugar and with postprandial crashes, fragmented sleep and flattened morning cortisol. So what did this tell us? Her energy production system was collapsing and her hormones were simply trying to adapt. So what we changed? We didn't jump to supplements or HRT. Instead, we rebuilt her terrain. Started morning light exposure and walk before screens. Added 30 grams of protein plus 20 grams of carbs in breakfast within 90 minutes of waking. Replenished micronutrients through targeted food and supplementation. Introduced low-dose NAD plus precursors, NMN and NR, and CoQ10. And added gut diversity strategies like fiber, polyphenols, and a spore-producing probiotic. We use magnesium glycinate and glycine at night to support sleep architecture. Adjusted training to emphasize low load strength and zone 2 cardio. And tracked her symptoms through a drift journal, mapping emotional and physical shifts. So what happened? In week 2, mood volatility decreased, morning energy improved, no more mid-afternoon crashes. Week 4, emotional clarity returned, sleep normalized, and brain fog resolved. Week 6, libido returned, creative spark reignited, and she said, "I feel like me again." We reran her hormone panel. Guess what? Estrogen normalized, progesterone stabilized, cortisol rhythm returned. But we never directly treated her hormones. We just treated what was underneath. So hormones don't drift in isolation, they reflect. Cellular energy availability, inflammatory status, liver detox and methylation speed, redox balance, circadian inputs. If your foundation is exhausted, your hormones will fall out of rhythm. But treating the signal without repairing the source doesn't work. Hormonal symptoms are often the smoke, not the fire. And when we build from the mitochondria up, the hormonal system usually regulates on its own. So in the next segment, we'll walk through how to tell the difference between a true hormone deficiency and a functional energy collapse. Because there are times when HRT or hormone-specific therapies are appropriate, but only when the underlying system is ready to receive the message. We'll teach you how to spot the difference. All right, so I want to be frank. There are real hormone deficiencies, low estrogen, low testosterone, low thyroid. All of those can absolutely happen. But most of the time, those deficiencies are not the root cause. They're the result of a bigger, quieter drift underneath the surface. So how do you know? How can you tell if what you're experiencing is a true hormone problem or a functional collapse masquerading as one? So let's walk through the differences. True hormone deficiency tends to follow certain predictable patterns. For example, true low thyroid, hypothyroidism, usually includes cold intolerance, dry skin, constipation, puffy face or swelling, hoarseness, very slow heart rate, depression that doesn't fluctuate, menstrual irregularity. But when you look at cellular exhaustion mimicking hypothyroidism, you might see brain fog, mild fatigue, low motivation, mood instability, sleep disruption, hair thinning. See the difference? The true deficiency is consistent, physical, and doesn't change much day to day. The functional drift is variable, situational, and often worse under stress. Now let's take estrogen. Low estrogen often gets blamed for anxiety, irritability, poor sleep, night sweats, vaginal dryness, fatigue. But again, those symptoms can also come from blood sugar instability, low neurotransmitter synthesis, redox imbalance, poor parasympathetic tone, or poor methylation and detox capacity. So how do you distinguish? Here's one signal. If your symptoms worsen under stress or fluctuate with your lifestyle, it's likely functional. If they stay the same no matter what you eat, how you sleep, or what supplements you take, it might be a true deficiency. So functional labs can help, but only if they're interpreted in context. And here's where things can go sideways. You get labs drawn at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday in a random part of your cycle. Your cortisol looks low, your estrogen is mid-range, your testosterone is low normal. Your provider says, hormone issues. But unless those labs are timed correctly and interpreted alongside your symptoms, drift patterns, and lifestyle data, they can be misleading. For example, cortisol follows a diurnal rhythm. It should spike in the morning and drop at night. If you only test once, you're getting a snapshot of a 24-hour movie. Progesterone should be tested around days 19 to 21 of a 28-day cycle. Earlier or later can make it look low when it's actually just mistimed. Estradiol fluctuates constantly across the cycle. One number without context means little, and remember, total hormone levels don't equal receptor sensitivity. You could have enough circulating hormone, but if your receptors are burned out from inflammation or redox imbalance, you won't feel it. So energy precedes endocrine. Let me say that again. If your mitochondria can't produce energy consistently, your body won't waste resources trying to drive hormonal output. Why? Because hormone production is expensive. It requires nutrients like B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, and selenium, methylation cofactors like folate and vitamin B12, detox capacity, especially liver phase 1 and 2 balance, time, rhythm, and repair. If your cells don't feel safe or resourced, they'll downregulate hormone production intentionally. That's not dysfunction, that's an adaptive conservation. Your body is choosing survival over fertility, simplicity over complexity, and it's waiting on you to send a safer signal. So in the next segment, we'll explore what happens when you jump to hormone therapy too soon before the terrain is ready. Because here's the hard truth. You can't out-hormone a survival state. If the body is in a protection mode, the message will get blocked, no matter how potent the signal is. So let's talk about the mistakes people make when they skip the rebuild and what to do instead. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They finally hit a wall. Low libido, flat mood, cycle disruption, chronic fatigue. And they finally get someone to run hormone labs. Maybe it's a functional medicine doc. Maybe it's a telehealth HRT provider. Maybe it's a wellness influencer selling Dutch test kits. What do you hear? Your estrogen is low. Your testosterone is low. Your cortisol is off. Let's put you on a protocol. So they start the creams, the patches, the pills, the DHEA, the progesterone, the adrenal support stack. And sometimes it works for a few weeks. But for many, the spark fades. The side effects kick in. The labs look better, but the person feels the same or worse. Why? Because you can't skip the rebuild. Here's the truth most providers don't explain. Hormones are only as effective as the environment they enter. If your cells are inflamed, underpowered, nutrient depleted, swimming in oxidative stress, or out of rhythm with your circadian timing, then the hormonal message doesn't land. Your receptors may be desensitized. Your detox systems may be backed up. Your immune system may flag those hormones as threats. Or the added hormone may shut down your own internal production too early. Now let's say you're prescribed bioidentical estrogen. Your hot flashes decrease, mood lifts a bit, all good. But no one checks your methylation capacity. No one checks your glutathione status or phase 2 liver clearance. Over time, you start getting breast tenderness, PMS-like symptoms, anxiety, water retention, irritability, maybe even worsening cycles. Why? Because estrogen needs to be detoxified. And if your body is not equipped to handle the influx, it recirculates in more inflammatory forms. That's not a hormone problem. That's a terrain mismatch. Another common scenario. You're told your testosterone is low. You're put on testosterone creams or pellets. At first, energy spikes. Libido returns. But a few months in, sleep gets worse, mood swings intensify, motivation crashes. You feel unsteady emotionally and cognitively because testosterone didn't address the reason your levels were low. It didn't rebuild mitochondrial output, dopamine tone, circadian anchors, thyroid co-signaling. So the message was added, but the orchestra was still out of sync. The truth is, if your body has shut down hormone production, it's probably for a reason. Maybe you're chronically inflamed. Maybe you're underfeeding. Maybe your sleep is fragmented. Maybe your liver is overloaded. Or maybe your mitochondria are signaling not now. And if you try to override those messages without resolving the reason, your body resists. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't trust the signal. It adapts around it. You don't get better, you get brittle. So the solution isn't to avoid hormone therapy forever. It's to sequence it properly. You start by identifying your dominant drift using subjective signals and basic labs. Rebuilding foundational energy, sleep, light, food timing, and blood sugar. Repleting micronutrients and redox status. Supporting gut-liver elimination. Reestablishing circadian rhythms. Then, and only then, layering in targeted hormonal support if still needed. When you do it in that order, your receptors are primed, your detox is ready, your mitochondria can respond, and your body accepts the signal. That's how you make hormone therapy work. Next, we're going to walk through the foundational pillars that regulate hormone balance without needing prescriptions. We'll talk food, movement, light, sleep, and emotional recovery, because it's not about tricking your body, it's about reminding it how to regulate. Let's say you've recognized the pattern. You suspect what you're feeling isn't a pure hormonal deficiency. You see the signs of drift, the exhaustion, the instability, the terrain, and you want to support your body without jumping to prescriptions. So where do you start? You start with biological safety and cellular readiness. So in this segment, I'll walk you through the 5 core pillars to rebuild the foundation for hormone balance. These aren't hacks, they're prerequisites. And the best part, they work even if you've never touched a hormone cream. Pillar 1, metabolic meal timing. Let's begin with the most overlooked lever, when and how you eat. Your hormones are incredibly sensitive to meal frequencies, macronutrient ratios, blood sugar stability, and morning protein intake. Here's your first move. Consume 30 grams of high-quality protein within 90 minutes of waking. Why? Because that anchors your cortisol rhythm, stimulates dopamine production, and lowers adrenaline. Pair it with 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrates like fruit or sweet potatoes, a little fat for satiety, and don't skip meals throughout the day. Every time your blood sugar crashes, your adrenal output spikes to compensate, and that wears down your hormonal signaling over time. Eat regularly, predictably, and with purpose. Pillar 2, circadian rhythm realignment. Hormones don't just respond to nutrients, they respond to light and time. Every major hormone you produce is tied to your body's internal clock, and when that clock is off, so are your hormones. The fix: morning sunlight. Get outside within 30 minutes of waking. Consistent wake-sleep time, even on weekends. No food within 2 hours of bedtime. Screens off 90 minutes before sleep or use blue light blockers. Keep your bedroom cool and dark, kind of like a cave. These shifts regulate melatonin, cortisol, and growth hormone, all foundational to reproductive and adrenal hormone rhythm. Pillar 3, micronutrient repletion. You cannot make, metabolize, or respond to hormones without the right nutrients. Here are the big players. Magnesium, essential for progesterone and cortisol rhythm. Zinc and vitamin B6, required for estrogen and testosterone synthesis. Selenium, supports thyroid hormone activation. Vitamin B2, B5, and B12, critical for adrenal output. Choline and folate, methylation and hormone detox. If you've been under stress, dieting, or training hard, you're likely deficient in at least 3 of these. So before jumping into hormone therapy, consider supporting your system with a high-quality multi-nutrient complex, magnesium glycinate before bed, trace minerals added to water, liver-supportive foods like beets, dandelions, and cruciferous vegetables. Repletion is the prerequisite for regulation. Pillar 4. Movement, not mayhem. When your hormones are off, intense exercise often backfires. Instead of triggering adaptation, it triggers shutdown. So here's your reset plan. 2 to 3 times a week of zone 2 cardio to light sweat with nasal breathing. 2 times a week of low load strength training, compound lifts, keep it to short sessions. Daily walking, 10 to 15 minutes after meals, especially after dinner. At least 1 full rest day per week. Exercise should support your hormone production, not suppress it. If you feel worse after workouts, that's a signal, not a challenge to push through. Finally, Pillar 5, emotional recovery and nervous system safety. This one's often missed, but it's everything. Your hypothalamus, the command center for hormonal output, is exquisitely sensitive to perceived threat. That means ongoing emotional stress, unprocessed trauma, overwhelm, lack of sleep, or constantly being on without rest can all signal your biology to downregulate reproduction, drive, and mood regulation. To rebuild hormone health, you need structured pauses in your day, breathwork or meditation, even if it's just 5 minutes. Emotional processing, like journaling, therapy, or honest conversations. Safe social connection. When your nervous system feels safe, hormonal signaling resumes. Hormonal safety starts with emotional safety. In the next segment, we'll break down how to apply the Compass model to figure out where your hormonal drift is coming from. Is it a nurture issue, chronic inflammation or gut dysregulation? Is it an Energize issue, mitochondrial depletion and redox balance? Is it a strengthen issue, cellular aging and adrenal burnout? Or is it a withdraw issue, circadian collapse or detox backlog? We'll walk you through each one. By now, you've probably realized something essential. Hormonal symptoms don't just show up randomly. They tend to follow predictable biological patterns based on which domain of your biology is drifting. That's the core insight behind the Metabolic Compass. Every symptom, yes, even hormonal ones, is a signal. And those signals point to which domain of your metabolic biology is under strain. So let's map your hormonal symptoms to the Compass model. This is where the science meets precision. Start with nurture drift. The nurture domain governs your immune baseline, gut barrier integrity, and the inflammatory tone of your entire system. When you're drifting here, hormonal chaos often stems from leaky gut, leads to immune activation and cortisol elevation, chronic endotoxemia, interferes with estrogen detox via liver glucuronidation, inflamed HPA axis, disrupts cortisol rhythm and progesterone production, histamine intolerance, amplifies estrogen-dominant symptoms like anxiety, bloating, and insomnia. Here's your scientific insight. Elevated IL-6 and TNF-alpha, common in gut dysbiosis, suppress hypothalamic signaling, leading to downstream disruption of the gonadotropin-releasing hormone, luteinizing hormone, and follicle-stimulating hormone axis, the very command center for sex hormone production. Common hormonal symptoms in nurture drift are estrogen dominance, premenstrual anxiety or irritability, cortisol flattening or dysregulation, histamine-driven symptoms that worsen around ovulation, and cycle-related gut symptoms. Energize drift. The Energize domain is about cellular energy production, redox signaling, and micronutrient sufficiency, which are all foundational to hormonal production and receptor sensitivity. When you're drifting here, your mitochondria underperform, your redox balance tilts towards oxidative stress, nutrient cofactors like vitamin B5, magnesium, selenium, and zinc are depleted. The result, your body reduces hormone output to conserve ATP, not because the glands are broken, but because there's not enough energy to support their function. Scientific insight. Mitochondria are essential not just for energy, but for steroidogenesis. They're where the conversion of cholesterol to pregnenolone begins. Without mitochondrial membrane potential, steroid hormone production stalls. Common hormonal symptoms in Energize drift: flat affect and emotional blunting, low libido, exercise intolerance, perimenopausal symptoms under the age of 40, blunted DHEA and progesterone output, And my labs are normal, but I still feel off. Strengthen drift. The strengthen domain supports your resilience under stress, tissue repair, and adaptive recovery. It's where you either respond well to stress or begin to collapse under it. When you're drifting here, your cortisol output initially spikes, then crashes. Your body becomes unresponsive to normal stimulants like caffeine. Hormone output may appear low, not because of glandular issue, but because the hypothalamic downregulation. Scientific insight. Chronic stress triggers hippocampal atrophy and hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis suppression. This is not adrenal fatigue. It's a central override designed to minimize damage under threat. Common hormonal symptoms in strengthen drift. Cortisol blunting, you don't feel alert in the morning. Testosterone or estrogen output that's flat or unresponsive. Blunted ACTH cortisol response on lab testing. No energy spike from eating or coffee. Feeling of being emotionally heavy or unmotivated. Poor recovery from workouts or stress. And lastly, the withdrawal drift. Withdrawal governs your timing systems, cellular housekeeping, and the ability to downshift into parasympathetic recovery. It's where sleep, detox, and neurological integration live. When you're drifting here, circadian rhythm misalignment throws off hormonal timing. Sleep disruption reduces growth hormone and melatonin. Detox pathways, especially estrogen clearance, gets sluggish. Pineal hypothalamic signaling begins to unravel. Scientific insight. Estrogen metabolites like 4-hydroxyestrone become more carcinogenic when phase 2 conjugation via methylation or sulfation is impaired, a common issue when withdrawal symptoms are overloaded. Common hormonal symptoms in withdrawal drift. Sleep that doesn't restore you, night sweats and fragmented dreaming, cycle irregularity and inconsistent ovulation, PMS with insomnia and restlessness, anxiety that's worse in the evening, and melatonin resistance. You take it, but don't feel anything. So putting it all together, your hormonal imbalance is never just hormonal, it's directional. And once you identify where you're drifting, your entire strategy changes. You don't treat estrogen, you treat the inflammation that's pushing it. You don't boost testosterone, you build the energetic scaffolding that makes it. You don't patch your progesterone, you restore the rhythm that governs its rise. That's the power of the compass. In the final segment of today's episode, I'll walk you through your next step, how to stop chasing symptoms and start responding to drift. We'll give you an actionable takeaway you can use this week, plus how to leverage the drift quiz for clarity in the 2-week recalibration series that follows. If you made it to this point in the episode, I want to pause and offer something most people never hear when they're struggling with hormonal symptoms. You're not broken, you're not too late, and your body isn't betraying you, it's communicating with you. Yes, it might feel like your hormones are off, but what we've uncovered today is that your hormones are often just the messengers. The real breakdown, it happens long before them. In your mitochondria, in your micronutrient status, in your sleep cycle, in your gut-liver axis, in your nervous system's sense of safety. If all you've been told is you need to fix your hormones, it can feel like a personal failure, especially when you've cleaned up your diet, you're taking the right supplements, you've tried every hormone balancing protocol on social media, and still you don't feel right. It's not your fault. What's missing isn't willpower or discipline. What's missing is sequence and the ability to zoom out. You can't correct hormone outputs while your biology is still interpreting threat. But once you start supporting the system beneath the surface, once you start restoring the terrain instead of overriding the signal, the balance comes back. Because your body wants to regulate. It just needs the right conditions. So as we wrap up today, pull up your notes or open a journal and ask, where am I drifting right now? Which domain, nurture, energize, strengthen, or withdraw, feels most out of sync? What symptoms do I notice that might be signaling terrain imbalance rather than true hormone loss? Then, take the drift quiz. Not because it gives you magic answers, but because it gives you a map. And that's where this whole recalibration process begins. You'll also get access to a free 2-week reset series based on your drift so you can begin restoring that hormonal rhythm from the bottom up without relying on prescription, protocols, or guesswork. You can take the quiz at themetabolic-compass.com/quiz. In our next episode, we're tackling a phrase you've probably heard 1,000 times. Just listen to your body. And if that advice has ever left you feeling confused, frustrated, or even ashamed, you're not alone. Because the truth is, listen to your body doesn't work unless you know what to listen for. So in episode 12, we'll decode the difference between noise and signal, why biological drift distorts your intuition, how to retrain your body to speak in clarity instead of chaos, and how to rebuild trust when your body's language has felt foreign or unreliable. This episode is one of the most liberating of the entire season, and I can't wait to share it with you. Final thought. Your hormones don't define you. They don't predict your worth, your capacity, or your timeline. They are mirrors, reflecting what your deeper biology believes about safety, energy, and repair. So stop chasing symptoms. Start tracking direction. Because once you know where you're drifting, you know exactly how to begin restoring balance. I'll see you in episode 12. You've been listening to the Metabolic Compass podcast, where we bridge cutting-edge science with real-life application to help you reclaim your health one directional shift at a time. To learn more, visit us at www.themetaboliccompass.com or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Metabolic Compass. And if you haven't already, leave a review. It helps others find their way back to alignment too. Recalibrate your biology, rediscover your direction.